motherfucker. There's a dark cloud over my head. Still counting money till the day I'm dead.
Ian Clary, we're live. Welcome.
Zach Duke, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate the platform, the space. Excited to talk.
Man, I love it. I appreciate you reaching out. I know that you've had something on your heart has been needing a outlet to release, and I'm here for it. And I appreciate you you sharing your time with us, man.
Yeah, I feel like for me, just the opportunity to speak and, give the work on this stream of consciousness, just like going straight from mind, from heart to voice. That's what I'm really, wanting to develop and work on. And then I love broadcast media. I spent some time doing art via, mass media. And yeah, there's something more. There's something more here.
Dude, speaking of mass media, you have a wonderful mural right there at FSCJ downtown campus. I see it every single day. My kids go to school down that way. And it's fantastic. If that was the thing that you were thinking of, yes, that's a huge thing that you guys knocked out, and it looks amazing.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, it's I think it's an inspiring piece. It was inspiring to be a part of, and just the scale of things kind of growing beyond the individual as an artist and representing a team that is able to do some really amazing things. And it's not one voice, but a collective voice that we're portraying, and hoping to portray the spirit of Jacksonville with that piece.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It looks fantastic. It's different than anything I've ever seen you guys do before, and I think that everybody loves it,
Yeah, many thanks, my friend.
In a world where everybody wants to find something to hate on something, I think it will stand the test of time as something that speaks something differently to anybody who looks at it, and will always speak positively to them. So,
wow, man. That feels like some high praise. Well said. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I feel like you and I have some deep history in the sense of familial connection and just completely serendipitous experiences. And I just feel like at some point we're going to need to address that. And it almost feels like maybe, I don't know what to touch on from that, but I almost want to save that for a moment in time where I've maybe become more comfortable in this medium.
Yeah. It's kind of an insane story. But yeah, we can save it.
Well, I feel like for some reason I feel like you could just give the most perfect cliff notes without
What's insane? It's insane. You were working on the second and third book, illustrating it, that I wrote, I don't know, 5 years before, and I didn't know you. My parents reached out to you and gifted me with such a huge blessing, and I didn't know this. But also, you knew my buddy Kyle Piety, who wanted to film a music video out in Arizona, and it was coming off of COVID lockdowns. And
shout out to Kyle.
Yeah. That was an incredible. I don't know how he got so many people together. They have literally people from Alabama, Florida, Arizona, LA, and I don't know. It didn't make sense, dude. I guess we all got our stimulus checks or something. It was you had this brief, and then so we found ourselves making a music video all together. I didn't know you. I knew that Kyle knew you, and that was it. And then you came out there, and we vibed out in Arizona and Utah, and then later on, my parents tell me that surprise, here for your birthday, we gifted you illustrating one of 2 or 3 of the children's books that I worked on years before, and that you
Yeah.
did it. I was like, oh my god, I there was this weird like under connection that was I don't know, palatable, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, shout out to all the people who went on the Redstone journey. It definitely was like, transformational in so many ways, and such a, a point in time to look back for your entire life upon. And, it feels like maybe the gift your parents really gave us, and, was the connection, it was almost like they planted the seed for collaboration. And here we are, I mean, years later now having this conversation. So yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah, it's insane how life can bring you together and then you can go apart, and the experience that you have is almost like trauma bonding to an extent, because you go through this really transformative mountaintop experience on a small amount of time, and you have this deep connection with people, and you go through like this powerful experience together, and you're like bonded, you always remember that exact moment, how you felt, and it doesn't matter what you're doing or what is going on in the world. You remember that time whenever you completely unplugged and tapped out and zoned into a project, and everyone, like, I don't know, like, what a insane trip, what an insane experience. And I dude, there's just so much to it. It was fantastic.
Well, I feel like we owe it to tell that story, but I'm feeling like it's an epic, it's a journey I'm not willing to, or not, I don't feel capable to undertake at this time. So
It's Pandora's box. There's so many layers on layers, dude.
But just to like kick it off, there's we could talk time, we could talk like right now what's going on, or we could talk some like philosophical, like deep dive, it sounds like fun.
I have a great suggestion. The world is very heavy. It doesn't matter how left or how right you are. You're mad or upset or sad or afraid of something, or just struggling in general. So with that being said, before we get into the heaviness, what if you tell me what you like to do that's bringing joy into your life right now? Despite the craziness of the world, how do you unplug, and what gives joy to you right now?
I mean, being 100% honest, it's like something I'm really working on and trying to find. As a younger man, I just remember myself kind of like, I'd go to festivals and events. I remember this one time on top of the Ozark Mountains, an event called Wakarusa. I walked like 55 miles over the course of like a day or 2 days at this festival. And, it was an amazing experience. And of course, I was like walking to all of these awesome like shows and music experiences, and just like, the random amazing magic that occurs at some of these festivals. But it's like I look back and I'm like, what was I looking for? And I just feel like, I did find something. I found like that was another pivotal moment in my life where it just like this had these experiences that literally if it wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be where I am now. But it's like, what was I looking for? Just like walking and walking. And it wasn't just that event. It was like searching. And, really for me, it's like practices have, brought me balance, brought me like joy. And then I used to like mountain bike on these crazy trails, and I practice yoga as a like 5-day a week practice, and I'm really trying to find it again, because it's almost like, I found so much joy in this, and I've really, I'm in a period now. It's like, what brings me joy now? And, I think this is a part of it. It's like, breaking out of, even though I'm in amazing, like, so much gratitude for success in kind of the art game. But, I've been doing it for literally decades, and I'm searching for growth and finding those things that, offer the exploration and joy that, my soul craves. So yeah, this is it, bringing me joy right now.
Very cool, man. I will tell you what, an interesting thing that I got into recently, beyond just like, oh, I find joy from, working as a full-time artist. I find joy in that, but also you can sort of be very heavy on yourself if things are slow, or you feel like this pressure to always produce, and it's just like sort of desensitizes it. But beyond doing what we love to do for work, what I got into recently was smoking meat.
Yeah.
Slow cooking it over like a wood grill, not the electric kind, a wood burner. So you have to sit there and constantly maintain the temperature so it doesn't fluctuate too high or too low. And I'm finding myself out there more times than not spending way more time, because I'm either trying to get the fire, to get to the right temperature, or I'm not, because I've only been doing it for like 3 months, right? And so it requires your presence to be there. And what I like about it is the fact that right now for me, especially since my mom died, it feels like life is in fast forward. And so it forces you to be present, and you can't speed up time by going and setting this thing and forgetting it. So you have to sit there 2, 3, 4, 6,
Whoa.
8 hours. Yeah. It can go all and
Well, just let me,
it's
just a second. It's like using the smoking of the meat as a consciousness practice of slowing down. It's like, that's what's up, bro. That's like what it's about. You've got some deeper insight into just like life with that.
And honestly, it was a great way to slow down intentionally and be with my dad, because he's not going to say no to some delicious slow cooked meat, or dip or vegetables or cheese or whatever. It doesn't have to, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff you can slow cook and just infuse it with this delicious flavor. But sometimes he doesn't want to commit to the time to being out there, but he'll come in and out, and then we'll, kind of like have this small back and forth banter, sit outside for a little bit, hear the birds chirping. And especially now, it's so nice to be outside. Not really today. Yesterday was about as perfect as it gets. It was cool and sunny. Absolutely perfect. But yeah, that's what I'm into. It's bringing me joy. Beyond doing like cool projects, and I did a couple of music videos that I'm excited about. I have one that we're about to release with this super cool band from LA called Earshot, and I'm stoked. They're sick. I don't know, because like the cool jobs, they're few and far between, because you need the money jobs, but the cool jobs sometimes don't pay that good, or sometimes they just don't come around that often, and so it was a cool job that I wanted to work with these guys, and we nailed it. We crushed it, dude. It was interesting because we had to create this thing from scratch, because obviously their band is in LA and I'm here, and we were creating it with all new footage, and so
Yeah, man, I feel
that
like
collaborative effort. Yeah, that was that back and forth to figure it out because they didn't quite know what they wanted. I didn't know what to deliver. I didn't want to go too far into the left field. And actually I did initially, pulling just random footage and stuff that I thought encapsulated the emotions of the song. And it was way in left field. I had to reel it all the way back. We had to give it a couple of tries, and finally we crushed it. We sent it in, and hopefully releases it soon.
Yeah, I feel like as an artist, it's like crush it at all costs. Like,
Yeah,
make it
well,
make it amazing
you're
at all
driven by
costs.
you're driven by different motive than the money. It's not like you're trying to nickel and dime it. You have an interest in the project and want to see it be its best, and so you deliver it differently. You get the effort is just, I don't know.
I'm learning the money side of it, the energetic flow of it. And I mean, I can get to a point of burnout for sure. So it's definitely like, I think wisdom comes in how much can I give, and I'm diving deeper to understand the money side of it, because it's always kind of like, I don't want to have an illusion. I'd rather like, okay, this is actually uncomfortable for me. Like the money side of it, I honestly don't want to be a part of it, but it's like, I feel like almost I have no choice in the sense of like, I got to address this because this isn't my like home field.
Yeah. And especially if you happen to, it's like, how far out do you have to stay booked in order for you not to start going like, oh God, you start getting real nervous. Like, how far out do you have to be to, like, because you get like that. It's like, oh God, I know we're good for this amount, but is this a luxury item that we're about to spend on, or is the money going to be gone in 2 weeks, or I don't know.
I think it is time, man. Was like, it's slowly like we're gonna take the foot off the gas.
Yeah,
I mean, at least to the extent of like, never take it off creatively, but take a little bit of the grind off the body.
Well, that's what I'm telling you, man. You got to do that thing that's bringing you joy. And for me, that's just like hanging out in the good weather, and not even sometimes having music on. Sometimes you just let like the birds chirp, and like you just kind of, you like disassociate. And even like my wife, Tony, right? Like she got into doing a lot of puzzles, and over the winter time, she was just doing like tons of them just because it takes a long time. It forces you to slow down. There's not a fast way to do it,
Well, check this out. It's like, it's not disassociation in a healthy way, because, these practices that are healthy, it's like reassociation with like the flow state, with the state of the universe that's like, constantly in motion. And it's just like removing the mind, engaging the heart kind of activity. And you're like nailing it.
Yeah, so puzzles in the winter, but the springtime rolled around, and now she's into the plants. I know that your wife has got tons of plants, and that's also something that you're forced to slow down and take care of. You can't overwater them if they're too little, or if you're growing it from a seed, it's different from getting it from a greenhouse that's, a mature plant or whatever. And it just like requires your attention, forces you to be present, and yeah, I mean, and you have that beautiful reward, your harvest at the end of it. And it's just like, not that all of them are like crops. Like we have some like cool, like, just aesthetic plants, but there's more every day, I'm sure.
Like a little bit over a long time, that's what it requires.
Yeah.
You want to talk some current events or something?
Sure, man. Which current event is the one that's on your mind?
There isn't one. Let's check out this headlines here. Okay, so I learned about this thing. So, I mean, everyone's talking about decentralization, but there's decentralized intelligence. So it's like, okay, I mean, in a sense, part of the problem that everyone's getting their, news from everywhere, and it's like no way to verify. But in the other sense, it's like everyone's finding new ways to verify truth. And in that time, it's like you're like got to rely on inner truth to really, I don't know, process what's happening.
Well, I think it gets kind of creepy whenever you have like legacy media is, that's what everybody hates is, oh, mainstream media, don't trust mainstream media. Typically, they're the most vetted or the most scrutinized, and they show their sources. And although sometimes it's slanted if you're CNN, or if it's slanted if you're Fox News, you might not say the whole truth or beat around the bush or promote something other than like the main thing. But typically there's no direct false information. And if they are false, then they usually correct it. But with these alternative news sources, it's like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. And it's like, how do you fact check something? You look up on Google and then you get an AI that will answer your question, and who knows who programmed that, if it's, Western propaganda, or if it's Chinese propaganda or Russian propaganda.
That was interesting, because I actually, I went on a deep dive with AI, typically Chat GPT, but it's I asked, like, okay, does AI have bias? And it straight up was like, yeah, because, humans program this. And even, I was doing, honestly, the deep dive was on, diversity inclusion. And it's kind of like, okay, and the AI has the bias that are, potentially ingrained in the programmers.
Although I'm wondering if it's always learning, if it can see errors of where it was programmed wrong. And maybe that's an optimistic view, or maybe it's going to continue down and be a supervillain. Who knows? What I do know is this: my brother Matt said something super interesting. He said, it doesn't matter how you feel about AI, if you like it or hate it. The only thing that matters in the future is not if you like it or hate it, it's whoever's using it the best, And so that's literally, it is what it is. And you either use it as a digital assistant, or you watch The Matrix and Terminator, and you hunker down in your apocalypse bunker, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be dualistic like everything on this plane of existence, and there'll be evildoers, so to speak, and like, I don't know, wielders of the light, or how, your Darth Vader and Skywalker, or Luke Skywalker situation.
Right. It's like, it's not inherently good or bad. It has the ability to do good and bad.
Okay, cool.
Same as anything.
Really cool segue into this thing. So I was up like full moon last night or the night before that, and just, went on a rabbit hole and ended up, consciousness is the fabric of reality. So, which essentially is, instead of being matter first, as most of our culture is, there is, consciousness first, which essentially the implications of that are huge. That, before matter forms, you have to have like consciousness there present to interact and essentially solidify the energy that it becomes the material world. Okay, so quantum mechanics and I don't know how deep I'm going to go on any of these, but what's the cliff notes here? Okay, so the role of perception. Reality as a projection of the mind. If consciousness is the fundamental layer of reality, then our external world is a reflection of our inner states of being. So essentially, like our consciousness, our awareness, I mean, we know on some level that we're creating this world. Like we're like, we're shaping it, we're creating things, we're, using technologies, but it's like, quantum physics and, so many schools of thought are now coming to a conclusion that the process happens like much sooner. It happens internally and then becomes external. So it's like, we could talk for a long time about just like all the people who are, putting this information forward, but on just a general basis, yeah, like what, do you have something that's, it's like we're creating our lives. It's like if we can, just, it's like almost if we can just believe whatever we're believing about the world is what we're going to make it. It's like the collective subconscious. If we can shift all our energy and all of our thought processes in a way that, this world is a paradise and like we are, a part of that, then that's what it'll become.
Yeah, that's true. It absolutely is true. Because man, if you set out a goal, or even, for example, if you like get a car and you're like, oh, I never realized anybody had this kind of car before. I thought it was unique, and now you start to notice them everywhere. It's on your consciousness, and so you see it everywhere else. Or if you're trying to do, I don't know, if you want to see the number 4, it's like I'm intentionally looking for it, and you're finding it more because you're more intentional about thinking about it and looking for it and noticing it when other times that you probably wouldn't,
Totally. And I think part of this research and thought is pushing it a step forward that, yeah, you're going to see it more because you're more aware, but I think it's suggesting as well, almost like you're attracting that, like I know it's like out there, but it's almost like all of a sudden you're on a path that you're going to see more 4s. Like the universe now has you in alignment with that, and it is like bringing it into your experience. Because I guess it's like, potentially part of this, science or philosophy is that, potentially all the universe is present in every point in space, the code for the entire universe. And so either is projected up, it's becoming from inner to outer, or from the macro to like our plane. And so I may have lost my thought where I was going.
No worries. I'm going to chime in. So it's weird that about being intentional and seeing things that you're wanting to see. It's almost taps into the same sort of concept as like the placebo effect, right?
Totally.
And so, now I haven't done my research, but someone was telling me that there was this medical experiment where someone had a legitimate open heart surgery, required the surgery, but the surgeon cut them up and then sewed them back together and did not do anything internal, but they had the scar. They thought that they had the surgery, and they believed that it happened. And they told me that heart started to heal itself. And I know that to some degree, it's all in your head. But then if it's all in your, you know what I'm saying? Like placebo effect is weird because it's hard to quantify it. But for some people, this frequency, vibration, or what, I don't know, this thing, it worked. Your brain physically healed your body, without anything but its own, I don't know, intervention, I guess, or some
Yeah, so it's like
something.
mind over matter. So it's like right back to this like consciousness, creating matter and what we experience. And it's like evidence that the perception alone can alter physical reality. And I just read that.
Even not just in healing, but also in withstanding pain and your threshold tolerance for pain, because you'll see people that walk on the bed of coals, or they lay down on the bed of spikes, or they do the the hanging for the meat hooks in their back, and they hang, and it physically is puncturing their body and hurting but their pain receptors are like shut off somehow, or they've convinced themselves that it's not pain, but it's like a euphoric hurting. Maybe like, like whenever you get a tattoo and it super hurts, and then you kind of lean into the pain a little bit, and you're like, I'll grab like my belt buckle and just be like, kind of like grit it or squeeze something hard, but at a certain point you kind of like the pain isn't so painful. It's a stimulant at that point, so however you tap into that is the placebo effect.
So let me read one more thing.
I don't know.
So the nocebo effect, which I haven't heard of before, where negative expectations lead to illness or harm, shows the same principle in reverse. Belief systems literally shape our bodily and eternal experiences. External experiences.
Well, that's why I asked you, with everything being so heavy, what are you doing to bring joy and peace into your life?
Yeah, man.
Because if you're doom and gloom all the time, I'm not saying to not live in a realistic world. I'm saying that joy is absolutely an act of resistance. The opposition does not want to see you happy or joyful or at peace. They want to see you afraid, and they want to see you hurt and scared and afraid to feel good or have joy. And that's why I asked, dude. I think it's the most important thing for anybody right now, because everybody's life is in fast forward, and it doesn't matter. Man, because like if you're always stressed out, dude, it will physically manifest as heart disease, as high blood pressure, or a brain embolism, or anything. You will physically die faster from it, from stress, and stroke out. And I think prioritizing time, budgeting in your schedule and financial, to make time for things that bring joy in your life. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it's absolutely critical to living in a chaotic society,
I think we can slow it down, like literally, at least, the perception of time. And it's like in some instances, I think there's more advanced capabilities. Like I really believe in humans' abilities beyond what we really even know. But simply by taking a breath, we can slow time, if only for a moment.
Correct. Yeah. Hold your breath. You will slow time down, or speed it, or whatever. Or if you're planking, like you ever do planking, like you hold your core up, and it's like, yeah, time, 15 seconds it will feel like about 15 minutes, because your time is way different whenever you're struggling, or whether you're having a margarita in the Keys, like, buddy, time is on super fast forward when you're having a vacation, dude. Yeah.
So, that's interesting, because it's like, what came to mind is so many people report just this infinite amount of space at at death. And so interesting that, that time is, perceived in so many different ways. And, what does that suggest?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a linear thing or if the past and the future and right now is all happening simultaneously. I don't know. I don't know how deep to go down that wormhole, but it I don't know. It's weird how you can literally right now change how fast or slow time is gonna go. And if you do nothing, it's gonna go. It's like going out onto the ocean, and with just a sail, you have no rudder. You're just going. And if you are intentional with your time and intentional with and it's about being intentional with how much heaviness you're going to absorb into your heart, right? Not to say to be callous or guarded towards any particular thing that's heavy on your heart, whatever the cause is, whatever the war is, wherever in the country that's suffering, whatever the bad thing is. If I don't know, man, if you don't, if you hold on to it too much, to too many things, it's too heavy, bro. It's too heavy. And I'm just saying, you got to find a handful of causes that are impactful to you, because you can't carry all the weight of it, dude. It's too heavy, man. And that's where it's like prioritizing joy is, I don't know. That's like my sermon I've been preaching every single day since my mom died is like, dude, life's short. Everyone's going to be dead soon. Today, make it a great day,
Amen. Aho. I affirm that.
Yes.
Just breathing it in. I don't know if you can hear it, but like the frogs are like just going here. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's that time of year. You're on the river over there, though. Maybe that's too big of a body of water, though.
Yeah, no, well, that's sort of like that nature ASMR that I was telling you about. Like whenever I'm out there at the grill and the birds are chirping, it's just like its own little soundtrack to life. It's own, like because back in the day for like cartoons and stuff or movie film scores, it was like theatrical, cinematic symphonies, like grand ambient orchestra music, and it's almost like that, but with the birds, and then you hit the crickets chirping, and then it's just nice, just wonderful.
Yeah, man, I love it. I feel like the theme is prioritize joy. But yeah, it's like, okay, so you got to shield out the negativity, and it's there's something about like alchemically internally transmuting the energy too. So it's like, obviously ingesting all of it all the time is going to negatively impact you physically, mentally. And I think you're, definitely onto something. You got to focus on that thing and, find some meaning. And it's interesting because what meaning is there other than that which we ascribe to the situation? And so once again, it's like this consciousness affecting the reality. Even, if it's just perceptual, that's real. Prioritize joy.
Yeah. I mean, because whenever you think of it as an act of resistance, it's not just leisure time, it literally is your way of fighting back in your own way and your own energy that you have, because not everybody has access to nuclear codes and AK-47. Not everybody is going to go fight that fight on that battlefront, you know? And so if you are out there and I don't know, man, you have the ability to help, you have the ability to give in some way. And it's like, if you give money to a homeless person, for example, and you see him go walk straight into the store and buy alcohol, should not even bother you. It has nothing to do with their heart, with what they do with it. It has everything to do with your intention and how you sent it out in the world. And you shouldn't stop doing good things because some people are going to take advantage. You just never know, man. You wanna put it out there, and knowing that, not that you're expecting a return, you just know that it's this energy you're sending out there, and if you have people that are around you that are on the same energy that you're at, then it's typically comes back to you. You know, you surround yourself with good people, hardworking people, creative people that are inspiring.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
interesting because that feels a little bit contradictory to this sense of internal becoming external, because it's like, you know, obviously you have this intention, and then, you know, it's the outcome is unexpected. And there's something about that too, just like releasing the outcome. And, you know, maybe it also involves like this sense of time that is like, okay, that immediate outcome isn't necessarily tied to that action that was right there. Maybe that's like, you know, definitely it's whoever, you know, is that person that you had that interaction with, and they have this whole life experience leading up to that moment. But also too, I mean, it's like, you know, I don't know how else to say it. And I'm not the biggest student of karma, but like, it's like, you know, your own karma leading up to that moment isn't necessarily in the, you know, in the capability of creating the outcome that you're, you know, maybe you're not 100% aligned, as you said, with that outcome. It was like, man, I need a replay to see how you said it, because you said it, you nailed it.
Well, it's almost in the same way that growing up in the church, man, they would say, all right, if you pray, there's 3 answers: yes, no, and not yet. And so the same can be applied to just sending out your own good intentions as is with prayer. So it's like you either see immediate yes, no, or wait. And so what else is there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, 3 dimensions, 3 choices. Joy's probably one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's this thing in our culture where it's like, you can choose fear, you can choose love, and maybe love is joy. And I mean, obviously we're not in a perpetual state of joy, but yeah, it's like there's definitely this choice, and you know, it's so obvious where fear goes. It's so obvious because, you know, you can see it everywhere, and you know that person, you know, people are in pain and they're suffering from, you know, as we said, that whole line of events and causation that came before them, and you're meeting them in what we perceive as, you know, present. And it's like, I think I lost it again.
I mean, the point of the story is it has nothing to do with what happens after you send this out. It has everything to do with your heart and with like you wanted to help someone because you had the resources to help them. And that is noble and it's honorable. And that energy doesn't go out wasted, even if in the immediate return you see the homeless guy go get a beer with it, you know? Like, I don't know what they're going through. They don't know what I'm going through. And sometimes you just give people the benefit of the doubt. And it's maybe somewhat ignorance is bliss sort of a thing. It's like, but I refuse to let kindness be looked down on as like weakness, or it's like a vulnerability to feel empathy for other people, you know? So I don't know. It's just a different way of looking at it. Because, I mean, chances are 50-50 that you can give a homeless person money, they're going to go get high or drunk, or maybe they're just legitimately starving, or maybe they need a new tent or shoes, or maybe they need to go pay for laundry, you know? Like, you don't know what part of the day you caught these people at. I don't think that anybody specifically chooses to be homeless, you know? Sure, some people want to escape, like, the 9 to 5, like, rat race sort of the thing. Like, you see a lot of like survivalist shows that are popular where people like fully tap out and do like primitive camping, or even on like Naked and Afraid, they're like super naked out there just getting feasted on by bugs. Like, it's different if you're out in the wilderness and you have clothes, and if you have to take every mosquito bite with no protection at all. It is a different layer of survival. Like, you're at your most primal tool making, fire making, hunting, food storage. And it's, I don't know. It's all about tapping out. And these people love it. They're like sitting there starving to death, drinking like dirty water, having diarrhea, throwing up, and being like lightheaded when you stand up, and they love it. They just love it, you know? So it's like, on one hand, I guess they're professional homeless people to an extent, but they marketed it good on
Well,
TV,
this is kind of taking a new direction, but I've thought about this, and it's kind of like, if you can make something profitable, then it's likely to survive because someone will carry it on. And unfortunately, that's often corrupted. But, you know, hypothetically, I haven't done my research, but hypothetically, we could take some land, provide amenities, and, bring in just like, it's like, how much do you actually need to provide these people something? And it can't be much. So it's like, if you could make a facility that gave these people amenities and help them, and they, only need to do the bare minimum to somehow contribute to the space, it's just like, how does that work? And
I would imagine similar to like a community garden, like people contribute at their own time, at their own pace. I was in Avondale maybe last week, doing a photo shoot, and this house was 2 houses down from a community garden in Avondale, and then across the street was this really cool park. I forget what street I was on, but
so I think that's the Avondale Rose Garden and then Willow Branch Park.
You might be right, but I don't know if it was only roses. There was all kinds of plants in there. But so my point being that I'm assuming that if you wanted people to contribute, it would be similar to that, because we've all done group projects in high school, and some people don't contribute and other people pull more work, and there's this, what's fair and what's not fair. But I don't know. I think people have to sort that out in their own ways with who's around them, It's like, how do you deal with working with a bad boss or a angry coworker, or because we all have regular jobs. Speaking of, this is a question I wanted to ask you. What did you do before you were a full-time artist?
I did a lot of like adjacent industry kind of roles. I did events, and I taught art in Duval County for a little while as a sub. And that was pretty cool because it was like, gave me a lot of experience, and I could kind of choose my time. So if I, had a gig, then it allowed me to, just take the days that I needed. And really I could have chosen any like class, any, science, math, history. And sometimes I did teach those, but predominantly there was enough availability of art classes that's what I taught. And then prior to that, I worked for, and this is actually what brought me to Florida, was working for the state parks. And I led a team. I think most notably, I led a team of trail builders. We were called Trek and Trail Restoration and Enhancement Crew. And we also did a disaster response. There was a disaster response component to our team. And so we responded to Hurricane Irma as like for first responders, and like giving people basic essentials, and clearing roadways and such. Lots of chainsaws in those days.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. And prior to that, I was in school, and I managed a gallery and framing shop. So there was kind of like, again, some adjacent experience. And I just, I feel like know your craft. I feel like, I'm
Crazy. You always knew what you wanted, the direction you wanted to head in. And for me, at least not until very recently, career-wise, I was all over the place, dude, like all over the place. And I never really liked any one job. It was always a job to me. It's like, oh, this is what you do to pay your bills. But good Lord, the journey from like college to now has been like insane. Cause I was at like UNF. I graduated 2004, went to UNF for like marketing,
I didn't know that.
Degree.
Right on.
Yeah, did a couple, maybe like a year and a half, and then got into some trouble, got kicked out, and then had an experience with a firefighter that I met in this like drug rehab place, and he was tweaked out on painkillers, and so we met at a low point in our lives. And then I was like, you know what, I want to be a firefighter. And so then I went into the fire academy, and then I did EMT school, and then I was working at like the Melting Pot at the time. I worked at a bunch of like restaurants like Olive Garden, Ale House, Melting Pot, like all these like tons, TGI Fridays, Jason's Deli, the sushi bar in San Marco, a Thai restaurant by Jackrabbits. But yeah, did a ton of like restaurant jobs, man, going through like school. And then I went to after EMT school, I had the opportunity to go to enroll in the helicopter academy. And it was like for commercial pilots. And so basically you go and learn how to fly a helicopter, and then you do like 400 hours, and then you become an instructor teaching other students in the same company. And it was essentially built like a multi-level marketing thing where, I don't know, you have the incoming class who's paying for the teachers. I don't know, basically it ended up being a Ponzi scheme, right? So I wasted like 9 months of that going to helicopter school. And then they still said that you're still legally required to pay some of the student loan because you received tangible and intangible whatever from it, experience, I guess. So I took like a residential pilot course, the written exam, and I had like, I don't know, maybe like less than 20 hours to go until I took my like fly solo, like physical exam. And then the company filed for bankruptcy one day out of the blue. Do you remember 2008, dude?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So basically, whenever the housing market crashed in 2008, a lot of the credit companies, that well dried up. And so the incoming student base was unable to get financing in the way that they had been previously able to. And so without that incoming, the money was fraudulently spent on lavish vacations and just, like your basic fraud. And yeah, so that was like a couple years of my life. Like I was like, yeah, of course I want to fly a helicopter. Of course so I went back to paramedic school after that to go pivot back to the fire EMS thing. And then I went to paramedic school for another year, got fully maxed out certified, and then it was still 2008, and there was a nationwide hiring freeze, bro. Nationwide hiring freeze. And like they were still churning out candidates at the fire academy and at the medical schools, but there's no jobs available. They're just flooding the market with a ton of candidates. So that was my experience trying to get into the helicopter business as a pilot, like fire school, EMS. Like I tried and they weren't hiring anybody. So I worked private ambulance for a couple of years. Well, maybe like a year, and I actually hated it. It's mostly non-medical transport. You take people that are not having an emergency but need medical attention or going to a doctor or whatever. And it just burned me out, dude, because you're just scheduled back to back to back. You're not like at the fire station hanging out with your buds, waiting for an emergency to go rescue a guy and go, save a baby out of a fire and then provide life-saving support. You're over there just taking your Granny Gertrude to dialysis appointment, taking them back. And then turns out a lot of that what ended up being Medicare fraud. And the ambulance company was actually sued because they would make you justify why you need an ambulance whenever you could take a taxi, and you'd say, oh, they were non-ambulatory or whatever the terminology they would put it in medical kind of jargon speak to say, oh, well, yeah, they were having trouble walking or had something with a slight gait or weren't ambulatory or whatever. And so they'll use these words that are like a very vague statement. And then would be like, oh, yeah, well, that's why they needed the government to pay for it. And so they actually got sued years later.
Wow, man. You're like seeing all the things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did Century Ambulance for like a year and I hated it. And I ended up, man, what did I do after I worked at Ale House for a little bit. And then, dude, after that, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I went from like paramedic to working a customer or like the service staff at a bar. It's like it's like hits you in your ego where you think you were climbing this ladder to somewhere, and then you're now back to like, here, eat some shit, kiss some ass. Here you go, have a full plate of it every day. It's just like, ugh. So it's like up, down, up, down, up, down. Never really like on a steady progress towards anything. Like you're like, oh yeah, frame shot, bet, substitute teacher, bet, oh, art teacher, boom, boom, boom. Like clear trajectory. Me, dude, I don't have any clue, bro. Like nothing career-wise. But I always like to do stuff that I never made money with it, but I always had like the creative outlet Dynasty Inc. It started out like with like shirts and clothing brand and probably wanted it to be a clothing line, right? And so then eventually it just grew into this thing where it was just my creative outlet. And so whenever I moved to Arizona, I picked up a camera, and then I started with landscape photography, got into concert photography, was working events, doing promo stuff for bands. It ended up going on a couple tours out there on the West Coast. And meanwhile, I was simultaneously working construction, but at a certain point doing the construction job, I was getting injured too much. And so I was like, bro, I think I'm ready to fully pivot full-time creative work. And that was maybe 3 years ago now. Whenever I was still living in Phoenix, about 6 months before I moved back to Jacksonville. And so, yeah, at a certain point, I was like, I had enough music videos lined up to where it was, I needed to take time off to finish them all. I needed to, I don't know. You want to be careful at what you get good at. And I didn't want to get that good at construction that I couldn't do the cool jobs that I was literally getting, that I worked for years to establish these creative networks and connections with people. Because you go into a brand new market, it's hard to meet people, dude. Even coming back to Jacksonville from Phoenix, it was hard to reestablish your crew and who you work with, or who you create with or do whatever with. And finally, I've gained some traction here to where it's like you said with the substitute teacher business. Like, I do real estate photography, but I have the ability to set my own schedule, and so at any point, I can just turn on full-time work and turn off full-time work, and it's dope, dude. It's really been like a cool opportunity to because I don't mind real estate photography. I think I would mind if I was doing like school portraits and stuff like that. Like, even if you were making way better money, I think I would just get so mentally burnt out with that, like school portraits, or even like if I was doing like full-time weddings or full-time, I don't know, something that's just like, bleh. But you just take pictures of like cool buildings, and well, and some of them suck, but sometimes they're cool. Sometimes you go into really cool places, and you go all over from Fernandina to St. Augustine to San Mateo to freaking anywhere, man.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I mean,
that's where I'm at now with it, dude.
Let me personally, just say to anyone watching this, Zach's work is just, inspired. But I definitely think, you're hitting it from some really interesting angles with the drone footage. And, Zach, I think was, is perhaps looking at setting up things like this, like awesome conversations, and supplying some really cool video, and it just seems like you have an eye and a visual vision. You got you got the artistic eye, the artistic spirit, and you're capturing something that I think speaks volumes. Where is your like I've seen your physical work. Do you have your stuff digitally online? Where do people find it?
I haven't tapped all the way into the landscape stuff yet online, but I finally did get, you remember Robert Brown from the Redstone trip?
Right.
Yeah. So he made the website. We finally got ZachDukeMedia.com going. And I was like, do I do Dynasty? I don't know. Eventually I was just like, I don't know. I just want people to find me as easy as they can. It doesn't really matter who gets the credit. I just sort of use Dynasty as like, oh, this guy's got a whole, backing behind him. It's, it gives the illusion, I guess, that you have a production studio if you want, because you could always hire people or outsource jobs, or it could be, but, you want people to think that, But anyways, so I did.
I think, it is a show. It's a show of your work. Yeah. And it's an interesting question of how to represent that. It's like, how do you represent that? I've got years of creative design experience. How do you represent that in a new brand, in a new, perhaps a new direction to a new market or a new clientele? So it's like, it doesn't always fit, but I think it's worth saying. It's just like, how do you say that? So I think, I say shamelessly Dynasty Inc.
Huh?
Represent.
Yeah, because I could always, because we printed merch for a long time,
Right.
dude. Like, and I was never profitable with any of it. It was always like strictly like a thing I just loved. It was like this creative itch that I had, and then, you'd sell a couple of things every here and there, and you just thought that it was cool, and it was almost like this hipster attitude where I had the shirt and no one else had the shirt, and so I felt like, dude, I'm rocking some exclusive stuff here, man. Like, I'm really feeling good about myself, even though I made this, and I might be the only person that thinks it's cool, but I think it's cool enough that you should think it's cool because I'm cool because I think it's, I don't know. It's like this weird show of confidence with like peacocking, like flapping your feathers out. And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I feel really blessed that murals have been lucrative for me and my family, and it's just like, it's almost like you keep trying things. You keep trying things until something happens. You're just testing the universe. Yo, this work.
Yeah.
This work.
And it's just like you said, it's like sometimes it's just not now, or you put in the effort for it and it's not it, and it's just not now. There's no yes or no right now. Sit on it and wait,
Well, let me hit on, I think I maybe made it sound like there was just this straight arrow to this point but it's like, I got in trouble with along the way. I got, held up by women, by police, by, you name it.
I've been held up by police too, bro. I didn't go into it, but I've been to jail a ton of times, bro. I've been to way too many times. I mean, I've learned my lesson, but Lord, yeah, there was a lot. When I said the lows, bro, freaking eating jailhouse food is the low. Sleeping on that jailhouse bed is the low.
Resistance.
Right.
Well, let me just do a little self-promotion. Y'all, Ian, my family brand is Heartspace Art, found on most platforms. My personal brand, where I'm representing, just a little, just kind of the art that I didn't have a client for, that it's like a vision of, Earth, a vision of Earth. And that's Ian for Earth, and mostly sharing that stuff on Instagram. So,
very cool, man.
I feel like if I can, I'm gonna sign out. I got family and work stuff in the morning. This was
Sounds good.
super dope. Thanks for facilitating, my friend.
Absolutely, man. I super appreciate you coming on. And do you have any closing thoughts? Anything that you're feeling about anything that you just want to send out?
Well, I feel, like this, was great. This was like, to me, like this felt like such a success. And I think, we got something, but we knew that out in the desert, and just like, our lives have brought us into collaboration, and just, choose joy, choose love. It's not always easy to recognize your fear response and like, what am I afraid of, and that's causing this, my choices right now. But it's, I think they reveal themselves. And so it's, just choose love. We're all connected.
Choosing love, buddy. All right. We're signing out, and peace.